Welcome, Gianni. Thanks for being here. It's great to have a world famous attorney that has been an influencer on TikTok and other social media avenues like Instagram. So I really appreciate you joining me. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and how did you get into the legal profession?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I come from a paralegal background. I'm from North Texas, and I had the privilege of meeting you when I did my first year of law school at St. Thomas Law Miami. I ended up transferring out of St. Thomas Law after my first year to move back closer to home in Texas, finished law school at South Texas Law, and yeah, just basically started my journey a little bit early, was studying for the bar exam. I got pregnant my last year of law school. My baby was due the week of my final exams, and I just posted my story about it on TikTok. People responded to it, and I opened up my own firm from there.
And what inspired you to post about your life on social media and share about your journey not only as a law student but into the legal profession? What kind of stirred your interest and your bravery to be so vulnerable on social media?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was not just an easy decision that I made overnight, but I did understand that there was some struggle to studying for the bar exam with a newborn. And I felt like other moms could respond to that. And I think that as lawyers, we're not quick to share the vulnerable side to our stories because people have this, you know, idea that attorneys need to be mentally, emotionally, physically, in just every respect, very strong and not weak. And sometimes being emotional is associated with weakness. And so I felt like it was just a very unspoken. I mean, it wasn't represented enough on social media that there are mothers that go through struggles in law school and becoming a lawyer with children. And so I felt like there was a platform for it, and there definitely was because people responded when they saw my video.
And it's amazing because you look at all these shows about female powerhouse attorneys, almost none of them have children, which is not the
Yeah.
reality, right? Like the reality is there are working moms, there are attorneys that have multiple children that one is enough.
Yes.
I know with our, newborn, we're just trying to survive it. And I see our struggles with my wife who's a litigator and, scheduling and figuring out daycare and nannies and
Yes.
family support. What do you feel was the biggest kind of tip that you may want to share about being a mom that's a law student and then also being a mom lawyer? What do you think would help the moms out there that are trying to do this and feel like it may be impossible for them? What are the things that you saw that worked for you?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question. I think it's just a matter of not getting distracted throughout the process, keeping the faith, just remembering that God wants to see you succeed just as much as he wants you to see that child succeed. And so, staying organized is definitely key because there's going to be a lot of days where you are just completely swamped emotionally and mentally, and you're like, I don't even know where to start. Like, you're going to get to your desk and you're like, I just don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. But if you stay organized and you have like a reoccurring task list, then at least, let me just start with something small. Let me just knock out the first assignment on my task list. And that's how I would do it, and then would just be productive for the rest of the day from there, because it can get very overwhelming for sure.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things you're balancing as a parent, as a lawyer, as a family member, and lots of commitments.
Right.
Let's look at the practice of law. Did you always imagine having your own firm, or how did you get to the point where you opened your own office?
I wasn't 100% sure going into law school that I was going to come out of it starting my own firm. But prior to law school, having that paralegal experience definitely helped with the confidence to start my own firm. And not just that, but when I was working as a paralegal for other firms, I always worked for attorneys that were solos and that did start their own law firm shortly after. So not only was I taking notes, about how to practice law, but also how to run a law firm, because those are two totally different things. And so I was able to come out of law school feeling confident with like the softwares that I wanted to subscribe to, and just how to run a law firm, how to market, and go from there.
I think marketing is one of the biggest pieces to having a law firm because people need to know you. They gotta know how to get in touch with you to reach out for, their family
Right.
law cases and their paternity or maternity, child support, all those things. How do you
Yeah.
use social media to your advantage? So oftentimes social media, is free to get started on, but a lot of attorneys don't know where to turn. So what
Yeah.
have you seen has worked for you on social media?
So I've seen two types of marketing for lawyers on social media when it comes to content creation. And there's, the type of lawyer that all they do is market for their firm, for, being a lawyer, and, all they put out for their content is like educational information with respect to the law and the practice area that they do. So that's the first type. But the second type, which I've been seeing a lot more of recently, is just attorneys being themselves on social media, sharing personal aspects to their life, getting a little bit vulnerable on social media to just show the audience, like, I am a real person just like you. And that's one thing that I have found to be the most successful, because if you are just marketing on social media as an attorney and providing educational content, that's not a bad thing. I think it works for a lot of attorneys, but I think that you're going to reach a bigger audience just being yourself and showing, the audience and the demographic that you're trying to reach, that we have a lot of things in common. Like, I might be an attorney, but I'm approachable. I'm a real ass person. Like, it's just, that's the
Yeah.
way it is. And one thing that I have, I tell people, because I've had attorneys approach me with this question, like, how do I get started doing content on social media for my firm? And I just ask them, like, you have to ask yourself one question, like, who are you outside of being an attorney? Like, who are you? And then, can that person that you are outside of being an attorney, does that look like your ideal client? And in my case, that pretty much is, because who am I outside of being an attorney? I'm a single mom. And that is the majority of my client base, right? Is single moms. So I market to what I can relate to, and it works because I don't have to go on social media and be somebody that I'm not.
So what I'm hearing is you found your own niche and you really worked on that, right? And also
Yeah.
having the audience connect with you, I think, is a really big insight, because many times lawyers are trying to put on this image of we're perfect, we have it together, we're tough, we,
Yes.
are hardworking, we have to constantly be on, but we know that we're not always on. We're human beings at the end of the day. We have our preferences and our likes and our personal lives, and when we turn off the lights at the firm, we have a whole nother life to go home to. So thinking about,
Absolutely.
about that, how did you get inspired to be entrepreneurial? Was that something that you were always growing up? Were you the type of kid hustler growing up, or what, is this something that has recently developed for you?
Not necessarily, like, I grew up with parents that were entrepreneurs, but I just kind of saw it like, I did a pros and cons list. So whenever I passed the bar exam, I was applying to different associate positions for family firms. And I looked at it in the sense of what they are offering me a week in terms of pay. Yes, like, I mean, you can't really put a price on experience, but at the same time, like, I have a mouth to feed. And what I was seeing that they were offering to pay me was something that I could make off of just a 3 or 4 hours of my time as an attorney if I were to run my own show, right? And so I saw it that way. I said, maybe it will take a little bit of time to pick up my firm off the ground, but in the end, the results are going to be more worth it, because I'm not going to have to work 50 to 60 hours a week for the amount of money that I could make in a few hours just working for myself.
You're always going to make more working on your own than working under somebody else, right? Because they have overhead they have to cover, and they're in the business
Right.
of profiting off of associates. So the
Right.
lower an associate is paid, the more money they make. So, and that's a model for a lot of law firms. So what are the
Yes.
types of cases that you take on? So, you're single mom attorney on social media. Is it only single moms that you will service, or what about single dads, or are there what types of cases do you take on?
I get that question all the time. Like, do you represent men? And the answer to that is yes, I do. It's just not something that I go marketing because it's easy to market to single moms as a single mom.
Yeah.
Because I think that if I were to just broaden my scope when I market, like, hey, I'm just a general family law attorney. I take every case that comes through the door as a family law attorney, then it doesn't put me in that special niche,
Yeah.
and it's easier to market to it in a niche, right? So, but yes, I do represent men, and I do get there are men that actually see my marketing for single moms, and they're like, hey, will you represent me? So it speaks to everybody, believe it or not.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, people relate to it, right? Like they go through the
Right.
same challenges, whether, whichever side of the marriage they're on, and they need, representation and support. Did
Yes.
you want to do family law when you were in law school? Is that what you were planning to practice when you got out?
No, not necessarily. I definitely jumped around with different practice areas, and it wasn't until my, final weeks of law school that I actually became a mother. But no, in the beginning, I was actually pretty interested in doing entertainment law and getting into some sort of transactional area of practice, like contract review, etc. And then when I moved back to Houston, I did get a job at a family firm because that's what I knew prior to law school, was being a paralegal at a family firm. So I went with what I knew, and I liked it, but I didn't really feel like I was growing in the position as that law clerk there at that firm. So then I went to a PI firm, and quickly realized that I just did not want to do personal injury. The money was good, but I was like, I want to do something that I'm going to enjoy doing for the rest of my career. Now, I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years, but in the meantime, I like doing family law. It speaks to me.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of times you're fueled by Starbucks, and big shout out to our favorite coffee people, because I know that you and I are big Starbucks folks,
I
and
know,
and
me too.
definitely are we're fueled by them so much. So I got mine this morning, and that started an early day. So it definitely helps me get through all the highs and lows. So Starbucks is ever listening, we're both open to a sponsorship
We're
deals. We
open to
love you.
sponsorships,
We
baby.
will we
Like,
will highlight you on every social media video. So give us some support.
there
But I
we
also
go.
wanted to ask you, when it comes to being in Texas, what are some of your goals, right? So you service mostly clients in Texas, and what are your goals for your firm? Where do you see it in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Um,
Gosh, yeah. That is just a question that I would love to have a time machine to know the answer to, to see where I am. But I mean, where would I want it to be? I mean, ideally is just I think that if I wasn't on social media, then I would just try to grow my practice staying local, which is North Texas, right? The DFW area. And I think that I could be successful doing that. But because of social media, I get a lot of requests to take cases in Houston and San Antonio and the 956, the Valley area, South Texas. And so I think that I could see myself eventually, like if I had the manpower to hire more associates and maybe eventually partner with somebody, assuming it's the right cultural fit, then I would be open to doing that and seeing where my firm could grow, maybe it being a state wide firm. You don't know. I mean, I don't know, wherever God leads my firm to be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think faith is an important message that you've had from law school and beyond. And I think it's really important for people to tap into that, because the legal profession is difficult, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
challenges. You're dealing with a lot of stress from your clients, and their life situations aren't always the best when they come to you. Other
Yes.
than your strong belief in faith, which is really important. What else do you do to kind of release that stress? What do you do to let go of all the burden that you take on from clients that you're, supporting and consoling and servicing?
I think that it's less distracting yourself into a different area of your life and more so having the mental discipline to get home and just mentally check out from your cases, because especially in family law where you're dealing with people's very personal day-to-day problems, you can find yourself very quickly living vicariously through your clients and their cases and taking on everybody's burdens, right, that you're having to work through as an attorney. And so one thing that I've had to do is when I get home, I make every effort possible to not check my emails when I'm with my son. And then also just recognizing the fact that, and this is something that a lot of young attorneys do in family law, is they get a little too emotionally involved in their cases. And what we have to remember as family law attorneys is we did not put our clients in the situation that they're in. The best thing that we can do at this point is help them move forward and, you know, advise them appropriately as to what their legal rights are and their options are in their cases. That's the best thing that we can do. And if we can do that, then we're doing our job. But there's going to be times where your hands are tied and there's only so much you can do, and it's not something that you deserve to take home to your family, because it's not going to make you a good parent, it's not going to make you a good daughter, child, whatever you are.
I always think about when we're on a flight, right? Because you and I travel a lot. When you
Mm-hmm.
think about put on your mask first, right? So if there's an emergency, you have to take care of yourself before you can turn and
Yes.
take care of those around you. I think that that's an important motto that I've always carried with me. Like, I've got to take care of myself so I can take care of my family, so that I can take care of my daughter, so I can take care of my community. And oftentimes we're so giving in this profession and so selfless that sometimes it's really hard to remember that. So it's good to have colleagues and, and a community that reminds us of that. And, what are some of the things that you're involved with that you found to be beneficial and in getting more clients? Like, how do you see that, not only social media, but have you ever had like court appointed clients, or what other way have you
Ooh.
utilized to grow your business?
I could definitely speak on that. And I think that the first two things that come to mind are, yes, court appointments. And then second is just networking. And so this is a story that I'm never going to live down in my career. But the day after my bar card came in the mail, I went to my local associate judge, and he does the CPS appointments. And so he told me, he was like, hey, like, do these CLEs. So I did them. I came back to him and he said, hey, we actually had an attorney so her license was suspended and she has 14 of my CPS cases. So do you want them? I'd never taken a CPS case. I've never even had a case as being an attorney by myself. And that was the day that my first client was 14 CPS clients. And it was one of those things where I had to find the right mentors. I had to reach out. I had to be shameless in asking questions, because at the end of the day, it's not just you on the line. And I mean, these are very important cases. You have parents' rights that are about to be terminated if you don't advise them appropriately, et cetera, right? So definitely CPS court appointments are helpful, because not only do you get cases, but you also start to work with your local attorneys that become very good mentors to you over time, you know? And the second thing that I would say is just networking. Like, I make it an effort that I look at my calendar every week and I say, what networking opportunities do I have on my calendar this week? And if I don't have any, then I find some. And I think it's good to network with people in your own practice area. But at the end of the day, as far as getting clients, it's even better to network with people outside of your practice area, especially with family law, because people that don't do family law, they don't do it for a reason, and they need people to refer those people to, you know? So I like to network with a lot of personal injury attorneys, because they don't want anything to do with family law. And so they send me their cases, you know, when they get called for those situations. So
But even like in the community, it's funny, a lot of lawyers are only going to bar functions. And I always tell lawyers, like, hey, guess what? The community also needs your services. And not only lawyers are going to refer you, but there's so many people over the years, and in my experience practicing, that have nothing to do with law, but that
yeah,
remember that I'm a lawyer. And sometimes they even call me for a case that, I wouldn't be able to handle, but I would send somewhere else. But then I look like a rock star, connecting them with somebody
yes,
I've met at a bar function. So those are always great pieces of advice. Get out there, schedule it every week. I think a lot of attorneys forget that networking is important, even if you're busy right now, because that'll build
yes.
a pipeline for the future, and how you can, make sure you're always busy, not just, random times of the year. So
And you know, something that somebody told me yesterday, which I found really interesting, and I'm glad you're touching on this topic, is they were like, I want to open up my own law firm, and they do PI, right?
yeah.
And they were like, but I just don't know if I can see myself marketing every day on social media like these law firm owners do. And I said, when you have your own business, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a plumber, you have to be loud about what you do. Because the first thing, when people hear the word family law, divorce, adoptions, custody modifications, I want the first person that comes to their mind to be single mom attorney, like hands down. But if I'm
Yeah.
not out there putting this in people's mind every single day, I mean, you have to be shameless with what you do. Just be yourself, be loud, be vocal. and just say, I'm here to help for anybody that needs family law help. And that goes with any business that you do. So absolutely. I think that that's really important. And it's good to also, one thing that I look for, especially when I get clients that are very local to me, is when they have businesses, I say, okay, like if they're coming to me, like I had yesterday, somebody came to me and they wanted an estate plan, which is something that I do, but I don't really market. And she's a realtor. So I was like, well, she's coming to me for this. And so now I'm going to refer other people to her business, and then we can, kind of create like a, you know what I mean? Like a little
Yeah,
group.
nice little network, a
Yeah,
support
like
group.
a
Yeah.
network, exactly, of business owners that we refer other people, like we mention each other's names in conversations when it's warranted.
Yeah, and I think what's important is having that web of people you like, that you trust, that you can send people to, right? Because you want to have that experience go well for your client, and your client trust your recommendation, and also vice versa, have them do the same for you. I think that that's really critical, especially if you're, building a group of folks that hey, we can regularly send business back and forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then one of the questions that I get is there an issue with posting too much, because some people are like, oh, well, if I'm going to post on social media, like, can I overdo it, or do I need to try to keep up with the flood of other people posting? So, as an attorney,
Mhm.
is there a problem with posting multiple times a day or multiple times a week? What is kind of the sweet spot that you've seen with getting the right
Yeah.
amount of attention online?
I think that that's a really, really good question. I mean, obviously, if you're posting every 5 minutes, that's excessive, right? But what I try to do for TikTok, I won't ever post more than like 3 or 4 videos a day. And that's me being like very proactive on TikTok. Ideally, I try to post like once or twice if I can a day, right? It just depends on the week and how busy I am. On Instagram, it's like I usually try to post to my story every other day, if not every day. Like you're a Texas law, family law attorney, whatever. Usually it's every other day. And then a graphic for my Instagram, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week type of thing. It really just depends. But I do agree that if you're, I think that there is going to be a line somewhere that you have to draw, to not be posting every single day, because if not, people are definitely going to mute you, you know? So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
don't want them to unfollow. You don't want them to report you for spamming.
Right.
But I think
Right.
that that's important to look at. Like multiple times a day, spaced out, can be fine.
Yeah.
For I think the hardest part is getting started and staying consistent. It's just being regularly out there. How do you come up with your material? I feel like after a while, some attorneys may say, "Well, I may not have anything interesting to say anymore." Or like, what else do I talk about? So how do you come up with the material that you're going to talk about on social media?
Gosh, I always struggled with that in the beginning. Because it was one of those things where I was like, I already posted about that, or I already made a video that was similar to that or touched on that. But then it's like you're not going to have the same followers every single day. Like you have new followers coming into your platform every single day, hopefully, right? So, for example, like my inspirational story, I'll try to post that story again, maybe every like 2 to 3 months. So people know what I'm about on this page and what got me viral. As far as like subtopics to that, educational content, I mean, I'll just keep posting the same information, maybe not every week or every other week, but I don't mind making 2 or 3 videos about the same thing spaced out throughout the year, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and I always tell people, like, figure out what kind of content it is that you're going to be posting in the beginning and stay consistent with that, because I think that there's a lot of people that are on social media and they just want to do it all. They want to do
yeah.
it all, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's not going to get you like a specific type of following, and then it's going to be very awkward whenever you're starting to lose followers because you're not posting about that thing that you initially posted about that got their following, right? And so what I did in the beginning was purely inspirational content. That was all I did. When people ask me a family law question, I shut it down really quick. I said, I don't do that, right? So in the beginning, I was just doing inspirational. But now I'm starting to do educational content, entertainment content, and it's because I figured out the niche, right? So I'm like, okay, single moms don't just need inspirational content. Like, what else can I provide to them? So that way I also have different avenues to post different types of content as opposed to just the same thing every single day. Because obviously, if I'm on TikTok and I'm posting the same inspirational story every single day, that's going to get very old very quick. So,
Yeah. And I like also that post like live and you're like, hey, this is how I do my hair. Because I'm sure you've gotten a ton
yeah.
of a ton of ladies out there that are like, Gianni, your hair is always on point. Can we get a tutorial, right? So
Yeah.
it's good to talk also about the things that are of concern of the followers that may not be only law related or maybe parent
Yeah.
advice, right? Like, how do you maintain, spending time with your kid? Because, like, as you and I know, we've got very young children. They go to sleep pretty early, like a lot
Yeah.
of the time, right? And it's like, how do you balance work life and balance time with your child? Like, do you find it challenging sometimes to be able to get home by the time your child's, at least to put them to bed and spend some time with them in the evening.
Yeah, definitely spending time with him can become an issue, especially early on in your career, because you're kind of like in the building blocks phase of your firm. I mean, if you're wanting to do that and start your own law firm, right? And so my work does not stop at 5 p.m. like my other colleagues' work does, and it's one of those things where I have to stay dedicated in the fact that when I get home, so long as this is possible, I try to spend time with him while the few hours that he's awake, especially now with daylight savings times, he's going to sleep sooner. And then the minute he goes down, I'm either going on live to talk with, potential clients or TikTok followers, or I'm just up staying up really late, catching up on my caseload. And so that's just what it looks like in the beginning. And I think it's the initial sacrifice that you have to make as an entrepreneur, um, because in the beginning, you just don't have as much manpower as other firms do. And so a lot of the work is you doing it yourself.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, oh, let me give it to my associate when you're the loan associate, right?
I'm like,
So
right.
if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it, right? So that's something that I always get from your videos is like, you've got to take ownership that, having a firm is difficult because you don't have the support of a file clerk, of a
Right,
receptionist, of a paralegal in the beginning. You are
right.
all those things. So I think that that's something that's really crucial is understanding that for a while, it's going to be up to me, and then I will be able to hire, the staff and to get the support and be able to breathe a
Exactly.
little bit easier. But
Exactly.
yeah, what are some of your plans for social media moving forward? I know you've got a pretty significant Instagram following and your TikTok following is unbelievable. What's next after those two platforms? Are you looking at other social media avenues?
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone and their moms wants to do a podcast, but I have a pretty cool concept about for a podcast. I think that I was sitting down with my marketing team and talking about like what is it that made people gravitate towards my story in the beginning, and that was just that they were getting inspired. And I'm like, I cannot be, and I am not the only inspiring single mom attorney out there. There has to be more. There has to be other single mom professionals out there that have a testimony that they can share with my followers. And so I would love to start a podcast where I just interview single mom professionals, and we can call it Sue Your Baby Daddy.
That's awesome. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And that's so
Yeah.
important is staying true to your brand and your followers because I have
Right.
seen what you're talking about. There are people out there that they post content for a while and it's one way, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're posting something completely out of left field. And you're like, wow, like it doesn't seem like this is the same person I've been following, or what are they
Exactly.
what are they trying to do, right? They're not being authentic, they're not being themselves. And I think that that's an important message I'm gleaning from everything you're saying is be authentic, be driven, but
Yes.
be vulnerable, right? Like there's Brene Brown, one of my favorite inspirational speakers, talks about being vulnerable because vulnerability is strength, right? When we pretend that we have it all together, that everything was easy for us, that no problem, people don't connect with us because
No,
everybody's dealing with
exactly.
struggles. Everybody's dealing with loss, with struggle, with frustration, with disappointment, with failure. Like, I always love failure because I know that when I fail, I'm getting closer to my goal, right? So,
Exactly.
and if I let it disempower me, it's just going to stop me from getting to where I want to go. So, what are some of the things that keep you motivated on a daily basis when you're like, oh, I just got up and I've got so much to do today and I feel low energy. What helps you generate motivation in those days?
I think it's just keeping in mind your vision of where you want to be in the future and understanding, accepting the fact that that empire that you want is not going to build itself from you sleeping in until noon every day. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. So that's one thing that I just keep in mind. And, I have just this picture of me when my son gets school, goes into school, then I'll be able to provide and spend a little bit more time with him. But right now, I'd rather make the sacrifice while he's young. So it's just about respecting your own time as well and understanding the fact that you've got 24 hours in the day. So you've got to get to work because, otherwise, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I always find it weird when people say like, "Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time for social media. I don't have time to network." And I
Yeah.
say, "Well, we all have the same 24 hours, and there's so many people doing social media out there networking. If
Hmm.
we find it valuable, we make the time, right? Like we make the time
Yeah.
for families, we make the time to network, we make the time to create a social media presence. I think it's really
Yeah.
critical to set priorities, schedule, like you said, put it in your calendar so that you're
Yeah.
accountable to it and you have to do it. And
Exactly.
that's critical. Like that's critical just to get out there and grind every day. It's not always going to be easy, and
I
find
agree. And one thing that I noticed too at the beginning of my career at least was being a mom, I was a little bit more selfish as to not selfish, but more conservative as to how much childcare I was going to get per week, right? Because I was like, well, if I'm not at the office and I'm not really working on a case, I don't need childcare. And once I started realizing like, no, you need childcare like 40 hours a week, and you've got to make the most that you can out of those 40 hours. If you're not working on a case, what else are you doing to build your business? That is worth the investment of childcare. If you're waking up every day, you're dressing up like a lawyer, even if you're going to the office and you don't have a client coming in, you are going to be productive, and you're going to see the return on investment. And
yeah.
so that's what I had to do. I was like, I didn't want to prioritize the childcare to go network, to do content creation, to do those things. And I found myself just not being as good of a lawyer as a law firm owner because I was trying to, be very conservative with one aspect of my life as opposed to just jumping in full force.
I feel the same way. Like when we got our daughter, I felt like, oh,
Mhm.
we can have a nanny for 30 hours a week and still manage everything. And my wife and I work from home part of the week. So
Yeah,
like, okay, even when we're home, like we can send emails and the baby will be playing. Well, that baby wants our attention, right? Like your son on your videos, they want
exactly.
all our focus. They want our life energy and
So
support.
much.
So it's like I notice that now I don't try to split my time ever. When I'm
Mhm.
focused on my kid, I'm focused on my kid. When I'm focused on work, I'm focused on work. But it's also
Exactly.
like a little bit, was it difficult for you? Because for us, it was a little weird, like hiring a nanny. I was like, we felt kind of weird about it. We were like, are we, bougie Kim Kardashian people? And we're like, no, we're working professionals, right?
We're
How did you feel about that? Because we felt a little weird
You
initially.
know, I was like, I do not have $250,000 in student loan debt to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, it's just not what it is. Like, it's exactly like you said. I'm a
Yeah.
working professional, and it's whether you have a nanny, whether you have your kid in daycare, whether you leave your kid at grandma's. It's if you're a working professional, you just invested years of your life to pursue a career. There's nothing wrong with taking some time off if that's what you need, but you really got to sit down and ask yourself, like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Is it still what you wanted to do when you were 21 years old and you went to college? Then go and do that, because at the end of the day, your kid is not going to be a baby forever. There's going to come a time where your kid is going to wake up one day, he's not going to want to spend as much time with mom and dad, or one day he's going to leave the nest at 18 years old, and you're going to ask yourself, where do I stand as a working professional? Like, who am
Yeah.
I now? So absolutely.
And it's a great balancing both things, like being a parent, being a working professional, being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, showing them the way that, they watch everything we do anyways and copy and emulate us. But it's
Yeah.
also, spending that time with them, showing we care and we support them and we're behind them 100%. But I felt like so overwhelmed in the beginning because I felt like, is it impossible to manage being a good parent and being a professional? And it's not
Gosh,
easy. It's not easy,
it's
right?
not.
But we kind of get in that flow, and I feel like I've never been more efficient with time than I am right now.
Yeah, me too. I'm like every second of the day counts. Like, and
Yeah,
I just made a TikTok video about that this morning where I was like, if you're a working mom, there's going to be days where you feel better at your job than you do at being a mom. That was me this morning. Like, and
yeah,
and there's no shame in that. I think a lot of
yeah,
working professionals feel that way, even dads, where they feel like I just want to go to the office and be where I feel like I'm good at something, as opposed to where you're at home and you have this like child that you're like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I don't, and sometimes you see the nanny's better at doing it than you are, but that's okay. Like at the end of the day, as long as your child is not being neglected, your child is being taken care of, he's happy, he or she is happy, and you are able to be happy in your working profession, then I think it's a win-win. There's no problem with
Yeah.
that.
And it's
Yeah,
also a learning process. Like I think being a parent is much harder than being an attorney because
it
every
is.
kid is every kid is different. It's such a challenge, and you're trying to do the best that you can. And I'm like
Yeah,
learning every day being a parent. I think more than anything else. But it's definitely it's an experience, right? Like there's a lot of people that choose not to have a family, and we made the choice to have a family, which is great, and definitely I'm happy that I made that choice in my life to take that on. And people
yeah.
always ask me, "Is your kid going to be a lawyer or an attorney?" I was like, "As long as they're happy and healthy, I don't care what they do." What's your thought on that? Do you think your
I
son's going to be a lawyer, take on the legacy of the Avalos law firm?
Gosh, I mean, I would love if he came to me one day and he said I want to be a lawyer, I would be more than happy to show him the ropes, right? Because I didn't have that growing up. I'm a first generation, you're a first generation, I'm assuming, right? And so it's one of those things where if he wanted to come to me one day and say I want to be a lawyer, I would feel so excited because I would know how to help him in that. But I have no intentions of ever pushing my kid to become a lawyer because there are a lot of legal professionals that their parents pushed them into becoming a lawyer and they are miserable now because that's not what they wanted to do. This
Yeah.
career can get very miserable very fast if it was never your true intention of wanting to enter it. So I just want him to be happy at the end of the day. And if that's being a lawyer or being an artist, it's up to him, you know.
Yeah, also like you brought up something really important. Being an attorney, if your heart's not in it or if it's not the right practice area for you, you get very miserable very quick because you're dealing with solving problems that people don't know how to solve for themselves. And sometimes they're in really big messes in their life and they're coming to you as their last hope. So
Yeah.
it, and you mentioned earlier not taking on their stress and frustration, but being very calm and collected and looking at what can we do to help the clients out? What can we do to, alleviate their pain, their stress, their frustration, and leaving them in the best position possible. So I think that's really important and having, your heart in the right place because anything you do, like life goes by quickly, and you want to be doing something that you're passionate about and that you care about and that you feel like you're making a real difference with people in the community as well. So I think that that's critical.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I do have friends that I graduated law school with now, and they're like, do you like what you're doing? And I'm like, I love it. I mean, I don't think I would like the practice of law as much if I was working for somebody else. And I've found like a sweet spot early on in my career where I'm happy practicing what I'm doing, but that's just not everybody's story. I mean, there's a lot of people that immediately coming out of law school, they jump into an associate role and they are miserable. They are overloaded and they're like, what did I just do? And it's not one of those things where you can go be like, well, like let me just go be a teacher for like a few, like no, because those student loan debt is not going away. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to be very serious. It's not just a matter of I want to be a lawyer because I want to make money or because I'm good at arguing. Those are
Yeah.
terrible reasons to want to become a lawyer.
Yeah, and I always tell students if somebody else is telling you to be a lawyer but you're not sure, don't go into it until you're sure. I
Yeah.
took years off before going back to law school, and that was really critical in me figuring out, do I even want to do this, right?
Yeah.
Because the investment is bigger than it's ever been before. Students are graduating with, a mortgage-sized student loan,
Yes.
and it's scary. I know when I was in law school getting ready to graduate and I saw the final statements about how much I owed, I almost passed out. I was like, what? How did it get to this
How does this
amount?
happen?
Yeah, exactly. And I think so many lawyers have that. But then if you love what you're doing, the money's going to follow, the clients are
Yeah.
going to follow. And it just becomes like, okay, that was our cost of entry as first generation lawyers. And
Exactly.
that was just something, we had to take on, but, we'll pay off pretty quickly with the work that we do. So it's kind of interesting to see you also brought up like, yeah, like this debt is serious. Like, I don't know at what point will we maybe tell students like that's too much debt to go into this career,
I
but
know exactly. And
yeah.
some people ask me a lot on TikTok, like, what's some advice that you would give to people studying for the LSAT? I'm like, take it seriously because that's going to be your ticket to scholarships. Take it very seriously. Don't just think like, oh, I just want to get into law school. No, like if you can excel at the LSAT, if you can excel with an undergrad GPA, more power to you because that's going to be the difference maker of whether or not you come out of law school and you pay a $1,000 student loan payment or a $2,500 student loan payment. So that, I mean, put it into perspective for people. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, and some folks are like, I just want to go to law school. I don't even care about the debt. And you've got that
Yeah.
LSAT in your control. If you can take it two, three times, see what the high score is,
Right.
maybe even get a full scholarship somewhere or a partial scholarship, that's less money that you're going to have to take out of pocket. I always tell students, if you study for the
Exactly.
LSAT now, when are you going to work once and get paid three times? You get paid your first, second, and third year of law school with that scholarship. So
Right.
that hopefully is never going to happen again in the future. So take
Right.
advantage, study now, and nobody wants to study for the LSAT. It's not fun. There are very few
I,
people that find it fun. So
yeah, I definitely made that mistake. I did not take the LSAT seriously when I was studying for it. And it's one of those things where I was like, wow, if I could go back, even if it meant taking another year to study for it, I would have done it. But the best thing that I can do now is just give people that advice from my own experience, and hope that they listen to it.
what about mentorship? Have you had mentors along the way? Do you have mentors now
Gosh,
that
yes.
help you, get through the challenges or just, inspire you moving forward?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have mentors when it comes to being a lawyer on TikTok, and what that looks like as far as being a very open lawyer on social media. And then I have mentors within my own practice area. And one thing that I recommend to people is it's okay to have more than one mentor. Like, for example, me, I do family law and I have plenty of family law mentors because I'm going to have a lot of questions and I don't want to be hitting up the same person every single day that I have a question. So it's good to have, a few that, so that way you're not bugging the same person every single day. Not that they would see it that way, but as somebody that doesn't like to consistently ask the same questions as the same people, I think it's great to have multiple mentors. And the way to do that is to get involved in your local bar associations. Like I said, the CPS appointments or any sort of court appointments are great because you run into attorneys that are doing the same practice as you are.
Yeah, and that's a great way to just get yourself out there,
Right.
help a judge out. They always appreciate that.
Yeah.
And, connect with people, just really connect and learn and, get varied opinions. That's what I do as well. And it helps a lot. I want to really thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I know that we've had some great advice and that, students in law school and other lawyers are going to find it really valuable. Give us those handles one more time for your
Yeah.
Instagram and your TikTok account.
So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, it's all single mom attorney.
Single
Just
mom attorney. Very good.
that's what it
So
is.
they
Yeah.
can follow you on there, they can connect with you, and I'm sure that, when they post questions, you'll give them the same great advice you gave today and that you give regularly on social media. So thanks for being here with me, and I look forward to
Yeah.
connecting with you again in the future and giving updates on all the great things you're doing.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. It was great.